Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at a drum machine that's almost an all-in-one standalone studio. It's the Elektron Analog Rytm. So you can really get some nice tones from this, can't you? And it was originally released back in 2014. So it's been around for about 6 years now, and it's preceded by the Elektron machine drum, which became an instant classic because of the flexibility of its sequencer. But whereas the machine drum was all digital, this has got 8 analog engines at heart, but each sound can also have a sample, and you can have a blend of the analog sounds and the samples on every pad. On this though, you can't actually sample sounds, it's a sample player more than a sampler, but you can load them via USB and via Elektron's software. And if you know your Elektron machines, you'll have noticed that I'm playing here with the Mark 1, and there's been a Mark 2 around for a few years now, and that can sample sounds directly. It's got 2 inputs in the back that this doesn't have. But for me, there was no need to upgrade to the Mark 2. It was a few £100 to do that, and I don't really need to sample in. I can do it from the computer, and to be honest, I much prefer the colour of this one. It's also got this free dedicated editor and librarian called Overbridge from Elektron, and it can act as an audio interface, so you don't need a separate interface to get those sounds into your DAW. So all in all, it's got a really complex sequencer, flexible sound engine, and tons of memory, all of which mean it's an amazingly flexible and impressive little tool, but it also means there's got huge potential for confusion. So let's start off by looking at the interface. So first look at the interface, and it does look pretty cluttered. It looks like there's a lot going on. And there is, but it's really well laid out, and most things are just a click or two away. And you might be able to see the red text here, and these are secondary functions. You press function and all these different things come up. You've got accent, pattern, swing. You've got some various menus up at the top here: song mode, pattern mode, track mode, sound. You've got copy, clear, paste. So there's an awful lot of things that are accessed via the main panel to avoid too much menu diving. On the left here, we've got the 12 drum pads, and these are actually quite a good way of explaining how the sound engine works. And if we look at each of these, you've got BD, SD, so that's bass drum, snare drum, RS is rim shot, CP is clap. And although we've got the 12 pads here, we've actually only got 8 sound engines. These two, these two, these two, and these two are all linked. If we look at those 3 little dots there, that means they use the same sound engine, and you can only play one at a time. So closed hats and open hats, for example. You can't play them both. One chokes the other. That's the same with the high and the mid toms. Can't have both those playing, but you could have the bass tom, low tom, and one of those playing at the same time, if you wanted an absolute cacophony. And moving on to the bottom row here, these are the trig switches for selecting which sounds play with the sequence. So we can see the kicks playing on the 1st, 5th, 9th and 13th step. And you select the pattern you're playing with these 4 at the bottom. So here we're playing A, and it'll be A1, oh it's A4. If you want to play another one, so we've got 8 different banks, A to H, and we've got 16 in each, so that's 128 patterns per project. In the center, these are basically for navigating the various menus. Then we've got level, tempo, and stop, start, and record. And just above the 12 pads, we've got these performance modes. So we can, for example, mute everything. So here, the only one that's playing is the bass drum. So we can put them all back in again. Got chromatic, so different sounds you can play as a scale, like a keyboard. Then we've got a scene mode, and the scene mode, you turn it on or off. We can change pretty much every parameter on the sounds and then save it into the scene mode. And each of these 4 on the bottom have got a dull blue light, and that means that they've been programmed with a different scene, but I don't think it's showing on the camera, maybe a slight bit. So each time I press one of these, we'll get slightly different or a completely different variation on the sounds. So you can hear on that one, for example, the high tom's got a lot more delay on it, and there's different distortions coming in as well. And then on performance mode, let's take the scene off for now. Performance mode. As you press the key harder, different things happen. So you could change, for example, the amount of delay on a sound. The harder you press it, the more delay. But you can hear there's a lot more than just a bit of delay going on there. So that, you know, that's really flexible. Again, you can have 16 of them on each program. So if you're playing a track, you've got 16 variations on the performances, plus 16 different scenes and the original scene. Plus you can maybe play chromatic mode, and you can drop things in and out. So as far as the performance mode goes, it's really, really, really clever. You could just play one 16-step loop and play it for hours and hours, as long as you spent the time to program in the various performances and scenes. And finally, on the top right, we've got these knobs for programming the sounds themselves. So let's start off by taking a look at a kick and maybe a snare, and just having a little play around with some of the parameters. So double click in synth, and we can see we've got bass drum hard, bass drum classic, FM, plastic, and silky, and sharp. So let's try the classic for now, shall we? Yes, we'll select that. And then we've got various synth parameters here. So we've got the tuning, sweep, decay, the original wave, hold time, so how long it holds at the top of the curve, and then different transients as well. Let's try another one. Go to FM. Yes. So again, tons of stuff in there, but you get the idea. There's, was it 6 different bass drum engines, each with slightly different parameters depending on how the sound's being created, and you can tweak those to your heart's content. Let's try plastic. So you can hear that sounds completely different to the FM and to the hard or the classic, whichever one we used. And that's the same for the snare drum. If you go into the snares, let's try the FM engine. Go into the sample engine and turn the level of that up. We can see here the sample is off. Not playing any sample, so let's put one in. And obviously the sample you put in doesn't have to be a snare, it can just be anything. And there's a huge range of filters in here as well. And then we go over to the amplifier section, and we've got the envelope, so we've got attack, hold, decay, and overdrive. Let's put the overdrive on the kick, it's beautiful. That's beautiful, isn't it? Love all that. And on this page we can add the send effects, the delay and the reverb as well, so. And every one of those parameters I've been tweaking with there can be modulated automatically in the sequence using the parameter locks, which brings us nicely onto the sequencer. Now the sequencer is really where the power of this lies. It's so deep that if you know how to use it properly, you almost don't need anything else. As I say, it can hold 128 patterns in each project, and they can be up to 64 steps long and can be chained together and arranged into 16 songs per project. So we're already starting off with a load of options, and then we can have different time signatures on each of the tracks. We can have conditional triggers, so something may or may not play. You know, you can put a probability that it may play or may not play, and I've probably missed a fair bit out there, but I think I've got most of the important bits in. Taking that pattern I played at the intro, let's have a little play with it. Let's look at this high tom, go into record mode, and we can see it's playing here. Let's go into each of these and just change a parameter, shall we? Let's try the tuning. Anything that's inverted, so it's a white text on a black background, means it's been changed by the parameter lock. So if we go into the synth engine, for example, on the high tom, and they go to step 2, we detune that, and you can see the detune there. Go into step 5, and that's black as well because we detuned that one. I keep on saying it's really flexible, but it is. And a really nice way of learning how flexible it is to buy some of the patches that you can get, or the sound packs that you can get from Elektron's site. I have bought a few of those. Let's try and take a listen to a couple, shall we? Let's go to this SID pack, which is lots of sort of 8-bit sounds, or 8-bit style sounds. This one's Lego Weld. And that's a completely different sort of sound and atmosphere than I was playing earlier. So it just shows the sort of range of what this can do. So it's flexible and it's a great performance tool in a lovely little package, but is it for you? Well, throughout this, I've mentioned all the sort of positives of this machine, but it's not for everyone. There's a lot of people that don't like or don't really get on with the Elektron workflow, and I think that's mainly down to the menu system and how you save different sounds. But if you love the machine, you'll use it a lot, and you'll find your way around it, so it won't be an issue at all. And as with anything that's complex, it is a bit of a learning curve. So I suppose it's not really a negative, just sort of a word of advice or a word of warning to be prepared to spend some time with it. And if you do, you'll be rewarded with years and years of use. As I say, I've had this from new for 6 years, and it sits in the studio and it's not going anywhere, because the analog sounds you get from this are absolutely fantastic, and I'll never get tired of putting those analog kicks through that overdrive circuit. But if you enjoyed that, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on the Clubbing TV official YouTube channel on our From the Studio playlist. And check out my Starsky Carr YouTube channel for sort of more in-depth and technical reviews, demos, walkthroughs and comparisons. And I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.